We decided to use COCOBOLO for the marking knife. There was a public poll on my Patreon where you could have voted to decide on what material we were going to use. The first step to make the handle is to transcribe the measurements of the drawing onto the wood. I did so by scribing with my calipers and then darkened that line with a pencil. This is where a marking knife would have come in very handy. I could then transfer my work to my small 6-inch bench vise and begin to bring the rough stock into dimension. I used my Japanese pole saw for this. It has a nice sharp blade that can be replaced when needed, so it's one of my favorite tools. Now that the blank has been brought to length, I can mark it up to bring it into width. I again marked with my calipers, and this time I used a saw that I made a handle for to try and bring it into width. There's a link in the description and up in the corner where you can find that video. I switched back to the pole saw because the other saw was very dull. I'll have to sharpen it sometime soon. A great function of my pole saw is that it has a rip cut teeth and cross cut teeth. That lets me make cuts with and across the grain with the same saw. When I opened up this cut, I was amazed to see the colors that were present. There were reds, oranges, browns, and yellows. I think I saw a little bit of purple in there too. Look at this. The sawdust that the COCOBOLO creates is red. Look at that. That's super cool. Wow. I picked the piece that I thought looked better and began to clean it up with some hand planes. I started with my Miller's Falls jack plane, but the COCOBOLO was just way too hard for that blade geometry, so I had to switch to one of my small low-angle block planes. The work then had to be split down the middle. This would let me carve out a small channel for the tang of the blade to sit in. I did this with a combination of my new dovetail saw and another saw that I made a handle for. This one is a little bit sharper. The knife scales needed a lot of cleaning up, so I grabbed my low-angle block plane again and got to work. The planing went actually very fast. The wood was super oily and stained my hands a little. Look at that beautiful book match. I'll have to take some other pieces and make another book matched piece, maybe a necklace or some sort of earring. Because of my lack of skill in the sawing department, one of the scales was a little thicker than the other. I decided to use that one to insert the tang into. This is another time when a marking knife would have been very useful. With the area to be removed all marked out, I could use my 3/16 inch chisel to carve out a seat for the tang. I was constantly checking it back and forth to make sure that I had a good fit. Now we can glue up the handle. I did coat the blade in beeswax so it could be removed after the glue up. I figured the handle would be easier to carve without the blade in the way, and a little bit safer too. I could scrape the glue and clean up the mismatched edges, then get on to carving. I'm using Mora knife carving knife to carve the handle. I'm not sure which one, but you can find lots of the same style online. The blade stays very sharp for a very long time because it only has one bevel. This is called a Scandinavian grind. It stays super sharp for a very long time. The glue up actually began to fail a little bit because I didn't let it sit long enough. The COCOBOLO is incredibly oily, so it makes the glue dry a little bit slower. I just had to use some rubber bands as a clamp. After letting it sit for 2 days, I could continue the carving. Once I got the shape pretty close to the way I wanted it, I could move on with a scraper. This really let me tune in the shape and make the fit a calm and sweeping curve. Sanding took quite a while. I started at 150 grit and then moved all the way up to 2500 grit. This gave the handle an absolutely gorgeous shine. I was very scared to do this part, the glue up. I didn't want to mess up the handle that I'd worked so long on. The glue up did go very well, fortunately. The blade has held in the handle real solidly since I finished the knife. There was a small amount of squeeze out, but I just wiped it off with a paper towel. The finish I used was my homemade beeswax and mineral oil finish. In hindsight, I shouldn't have used that finish. The oily wood resisted the mineral oil in the finish and didn't dry fully. I could have made a mix with less mineral oil, but that's in the past now. And here's the finished product. There's so many colors popping out of this COCOBOLO. I can see browns, yellows, reds, and so many more earthly hues. This is truly one of the most handsome projects I've ever completed. It's very fulfilling to see my work become better and better as I get more practice. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you really love what I'm doing here, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.